Model railroading has quite the learning curve sometimes, and they say you learn best from your mistakes. Today, I'm going to talk about 5 mistakes that I have made in my model railroading journey in hopes of helping you avoid them and save you time and money on Coffee and Trains. Welcome everybody to another edition of Coffee and Trains. Before we begin, I'm actually drinking Nespresso's decaffeinato because it is in the evening when I'm shooting this and I don't want to be up all night. And as always, I take it black with 2 sugars. So today we're talking about mistakes that I have made in model railroading. Now, the reason that I want to do this is to help you guys avoid these mistakes because they are very avoidable mistakes and there are things that can slow you down and cost you money. So let's jump into these 5 mistakes that I have made. Number 1 is a mistake that I'm pretty sure we have all made at some point during our model railroading journey, but I know that I was guilty of, especially in the earlier process, and that is getting into a rush when it comes to pretty much everything model railroading, whether it's construction, whether it's wiring, whether it's scenery, any of these things. Getting into a rush can really just make a direct impact on what your model railroad ends up looking like and how it ends up working. For instance, in construction, if you get in a rush in building your layout and building the benchwork and the framework, you're not going to have a sound base for your layout. I've had wobbly layouts because I didn't take the time to finish them, or I didn't take the time to save money to buy better materials to build the base out of. When it comes to wiring, I've been in a rush for wiring and I've ended up having track that doesn't work that well. So taking your time on the important things is something that you need to do in model railroading. For instance, when you're building a model, you need to take your time. If it says that the glue needs to dry overnight, let it dry overnight. Don't try to start painting it or detailing it while the glue is still drying. Just give it time and let everything play out the way it's supposed to. If you take your time and are very deliberate in your actions and don't get into a rush when you're doing everything model railroading, you're going to have a better model railroad experience. Number 2 is not having a plan. Now, this is something that if you were just getting started in the model railroad hobby, let's say you just literally bought a starter set and you want to experiment with it, ignore this because you really just need to be playing around and figuring out what can help you have fun in the hobby. When you're ready to build your first layout or you're ready to build a layout period, not having a plan is a big mistake that you can make. I have built several layouts where I was just kind of putting stuff together and hoping that it came out. And I've actually gone through several layouts because I ended up not being happy because I didn't plan out what exactly I wanted out of my model railroad. Now, tearing out layouts is nothing new to model railroading, but tearing them out because they're not fun and they didn't accomplish what you wanted because you didn't have a plan is a very avoidable mistake. And this is also something that on a smaller scale, such as scenery and wiring and accessories, can be another issue. For instance, if you know down the road that you're going to want to maybe wire up some switches to be remote controlled, go ahead and run the wires. You don't have to hook them up to anything, but have those wires through the benchwork so that all you have to do is hook them up rather than having to dig out the switch and put everything in place. Go ahead and make the holes ready right there. A great example of this for me is I decided after the fact on a previous layout that I wanted to light up my buildings, and I had already had the scenery in place and everything. I ended up having to rip out quite a bit of scenery in order to do the lighting properly, and it ended up costing me way more money than it should have because I had to buy new scenery materials to put everything back in place and have it look the way it did, and it still ended up not working out right, which was frustrating. And that's another thing. Not having a plan can lead to a lot more frustration in the hobby as well, which means less fun. Number 3 is without a doubt the mistake that has cost me the most money in model railroading because it requires a lot of times just building a whole new layout, and that is not designing your layout with the future in mind. And what I mean by that is when you first build your layout, it's going to be fantastic. You're going to love it and you're going to get so many happy hours of enjoyment and operation out of it. But at some point, it may get a little boring and it may get to the point where it's like, I've done this before. I've done it over and over and over again. And the trains going around isn't just as exciting as it used to be. So planning for your layout to be fun in the future and continuing to be fun in the future is something that you need to consider, so that anytime you get really bored with your layout, you don't decide just to rip it up, rip out a section of it, and build a whole new one, which is going to cost you money. Now, ways that you can do this is, first of all, you can have tracks that go to the edge of the layout that you can attach future expansions to. Now, whether these are industry modules, branch lines, or things like that, you can even have them currently representing areas with just a piece of track going off there that you want to build later. Have areas for your layout to expand, whether it's temporary modules or permanent expansions. This way you have something to build in the future, and you can scratch that itch of wanting to build something new without ripping up your old layout. The other thing is that you are going to grow in this hobby, and you're going to get better at different techniques in this hobby. And that's a great thing, and you want your layout to be able to grow with you. So when you're building your layout, think of places where you might wire something. Think of places where you might run additional track. Think of places that you're going to want to change up and address, or need access to track that you may not have right now. Think about if you may someday want to, I don't know, attach a helix. You're going to want to have room for that and a place for that to go. Let's say right now you don't run intermodal trains, but you want to have the ability to do that in the future. You're going to want to make your clearances all able to run those intermodal trains. Things like that are things to think about when you're future-proofing your layout, so that you can have fun with this layout for years, if not decades to come. Number 4 is something that I've actually done an entire video on. I'll link that right up here. And that is not having a budget for your model railroad. Model railroading can get very expensive. And if you don't have a budget for the way that you want to spend your money on your hobby, you're not going to be able to really figure out what you want the most, because a budget helps you organize what you need and what you want out of the hobby. And it can actually make the lens that you look through the hobby a lot clearer, because if you want something and this is something that you keep wanting, you keep wanting, and you keep wanting, you know it's something that's going to help you enjoy the hobby more, you go make a budget for it and you have a plan to get it. Now, I understand that this makes sometimes the hobby not as fun as just buying everything right away, but having a budget is going to help you enjoy the hobby, because it's going to help you set goals and get exactly what you want out of the hobby, because you know what you want to spend your money on. Okay, last tip, and it is the most important one by far. So get a paper and pen out and get ready to write this down. Do not forget to have fun. And what I mean by that is that it is very, very easy to get lost in the minutia of model railroading, because this is an extremely expansive hobby, and it's very easy to get all these other people's voices in your head and telling you how you should be operating and how you should be doing all these different things. The bottom line is, if you're having fun, you are doing model railroading right. Don't let anyone tell you anything else otherwise. Now, that definition of fun changes for every person. If you just like having your trains on a table in an oval with some pretty scenery around them and watching them go around and you're having fun, you are doing model railroading right. If you are trying to model the Union Pacific between Grand Junction, Colorado and Salt Lake City, Utah on July 17th of 1957 and replicate that perfectly, you are doing model railroading correctly. You see what I'm kind of saying here? The correct way to do model railroading is to have fun doing it. Don't try to get bogged down in all the minutia and listening to what everyone else says. Take advice from people that are giving you advice on subjects that you want to know about, but have fun. It is the most important thing about model railroading. Okay, guys, let's talk about some of the coffee that you guys are drinking. Jim Baritone is drinking Kicking Horse Three Sisters. That sounds interesting. That's something I might have to try. Greg C is drinking Black Rifle Beyond Black Coffee. Fred Cookerly is drinking Nespresso all the way. I'm drinking Nespresso right now, and I have to say, for a single serve coffee machine, this is the best that I have ever had. So definitely, if you get the chance, try a Nespresso machine. Let's see here. Honest GB fan, a cup of Pete's Big Big Bang coffee. I've got a Pete's near my work, and whenever I do actually go into the office these days, I'll have to go try that out. And Matt Taylor is drinking Balzac's coffee winter blend with cream and brown sugar. That sounds like another one to try. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for telling me the coffees that you drink. It gives me more coffees to try. I got a long list developing, and I want to hear from you guys. Last week I got a lot of great commentary on different scales that you guys like and why you like them. I want to hear this week about some of the mistakes that you have made and how you learn from them, so that we can help people that are getting into this hobby learn from our mistakes and what we have learned. So you can leave that in the comments below. Plus, tell me what coffee you're drinking in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I want to give a big thank you to all of my patrons. They are listed right here. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. I've got a lot of stuff coming out of the Etsy store this month, so you'll want to definitely check that out. There's a link in the description below. Getting a lot of cool new things coming. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading.